Hi, I'm Karla Schafer, designer for Auntie's Beads, and today I'll be designing a bracelet using the licorice leather. What we will need for this project is a piece of licorice leather. I'm also going to be making a wire design on top of it, so I'm going to be using a 20 gauge artistic wire. We'll need the clasp specially designed for the licorice leather, some Zap-A-Gap, a pair of nipper tools, and a ruler, and also a pair of round nose pliers. The first thing we need to do is cut the licorice leather down to the correct size for a 7.5 inch bracelet, which is what I'm going to be making. I'm going to measure my clasp, which is going to measure about 1.5 inches. And I have already done one of these, and I have found that cutting it just slightly, about 6 3/4 is about where I want it. I'm going to use a nipper tool to cut it, but I've also heard that it is an X-Acto knife will work because the stuff's pretty thick. You're going to have to cut it in sections almost, and then we'll trim it up. But you don't see this end because the end goes into the finding. And just measure. And you can also fit these on the end and wrap it around your wrist to see if it's going to be the right size. You can always trim off some extra. This is going to be about right. And then what I'm going to do, now we also sell little slides and things like that that will go over the licorice leather that are specially designed for the licorice leather, but instead I'm just going to do a little wire design like I've done on this one, and I'm going to be using the 20 gauge artistic wire. So I'm just going to cut about 15 inches of wire, which is going to be a little more than what I need for this design, and I'm going to just make a simple little coiled loop on the end here. I'm going to slip that off, and then I'm going to place it on the leather, and I'm just going to wrap. I'm going to do 3 wraps first, and then I'm just going to make some loops, some elongated loops. And you can do anything you want. I think Dina, who gave me this idea, actually had hammered her little loops here and made them flat. You can do it however you want. And then I'm going to wrap it again 3 more times, and then we'll make some adjustments. Just use the pliers to move the wire around. And then I'm going to cut off some of the excess wire here and make me another little loop. Probably need to cut a little more off. And just make sure it's all nice and tight, and that we've got the little loops the way we want them. And then we can add the ends to the bracelet. And you can slide this down to make sure it's centered properly. And then we're going to add the ends. And what I'm going to do, it's best if you take apart the clasp and let each end dry on its own without bending this, because this leather is really nice and stiff, so it will actually pull out of the finding before it's dry. So I'm using the Zap-A-Gap, and again, Zap-A-Gap is pretty strong stuff. I'm going to add it into the finding, and I'm also going to add it to the end. I'm just going to insert the end here. Oh, I got it on me. And I'm going to let that sit for a few seconds, and then I'll do the other end. Be careful, I've actually put too much in that one end there, and it ended up all over me. You will get stuck. as I'm sticking to my mat. And then I'm going to insert this one. And then we're going to let that dry. Let that dry for several hours before you try to clasp it and put it on. This is how you would do a licorice leather bracelet.